Welcome to the Goodieval Life, where I, Jordan Goodine, share my experiences and insights on how to live the best life possible. As a NASCAR pit crew athlete, I've learned the importance of training, living, and learning. My passion for sharing my knowledge and life journeys comes from my desire to inspire change and help others achieve greatness in their own lives. Join me on this journey as we explore the ups and downs of life and how to make the most out of every moment. I believe that life is about living to the fullest and chasing your dreams, and I'm here to help you do just that. Let's get started. Hey, what's up, guys? Today, this is the Goodieval Life podcast. I'm joined with Ryan Flores. I call him Skip, but this is a podcast that I've pretty much been waiting on for a long time, When I first got into the sport of NASCAR, I remember just being on Instagram and going all throughout pit crew guys and just, trying to figure out who I could find and, just kind of see what all the life entailed. And I stumbled across this Instagram page, and I remember I followed him. I want to say I was 19 at the time. I was still a junior in college. I just started at Stewart-Haas Racing. But I followed him, and, he was pretty much like the celebrity to me of NASCAR. And, when I finally got over to Penske and got to take on that role of being a pit crew guy over there, and when I first met him and he started talking to me, it was almost like I was talking to a celebrity in real life. And, just being a young guy and, seeing this person that you admire on social media and him actually being able to talk to you, you get his phone number and he follows you back. It was a big deal for me, but one of the most profound things for me was whenever I first got to Penske. I remember when I was going in to sign my contract, Mike Nelson, who's the president of NASCAR production over there, he was looking at all my tattoos because I have quite a few, and he looked at my arm and he said, "Stoic." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he asked me, he said, "What do you know about Stoicism?" And I said, "Enough to get through life." That's what I said to him.
I like that.
That's what I said during my interview. And I just started rambling off quotes to him. And he liked that. And every time me and him have interaction now, we always say something a Stoic would say to each other. But that's kind of how my relationship with Skip kind of started off. I would post certain things on my story on Instagram, and he would slide up and say certain things. And whenever I would have my own little morning talks on my podcast when I first started off, he would come up to me at the shop and say something that I said on the podcast. And I don't know if he knows, but whenever he did that to me the first time, it was a huge deal for me. I remember I went and told my parents, I told my friends, because Skip also has his own podcast, and it's a pretty big deal. So being able to have someone admire your own, little thing, whatever you have going on in life, it was a big deal. But without further ado, I'll just let Skip go ahead and introduce himself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, that was quite the introduction. You are a very stoic guy, because when I say stuff like that, you have no emotion. You never react anyway. You just look at me, or you might get a little smile out of you. So that's cool to hear. And man, I don't know. It's one of the cases, I think, of like, if I was a celebrity to you, that you never want to meet the people that you maybe follow on Instagram or think are cool, because I'm sure it was a letdown. But that's cool. That's cool to hear. You never really think about your reach like that when you're doing the job. And I don't know that, unless I have perspective and look back at the guys that I admired when I wanted to be a picker guy, I really look at myself as a veteran guy that can be influential to some of the younger guys. So that's cool to maybe have a positive impact. Or like if you follow the Instagram page, my Instagram page, and see what kind of living the life of a picker guy looks like and makes you want to do it, that makes me feel good. So yeah, that all meant a lot. But yeah, this is my 19th season on the road, so I've been doing the NASCAR stuff for a while, and I just grew up kind of racing around the Northeast and moved here right after high school, and have been doing it ever since.
Yeah, so what would you say, what got you into wanting to do pit crew?
I've always been a racer. So my dad got me into racing he raced like BMX, like in the heyday, like when BMX was really cool, and motocross, then the race cars. And he got me. I started driving when I was 5 years old, and I always wanted to be a driver, but just kind of didn't have the opportunities. And then a lot like broken home back in New Jersey. My parents got divorced. My dad had fallen like pretty heavily into addiction when I was 14 years old. So the driving opportunities kind of ran out because you kind of rely on like your dad to do that, or your father figure. And my dad was struggling with his own demons at the time, so I started working on the cars because I just wanted to be around. And a family up there, the Blewitts, kind of got me a car that I could work on and do my own stuff, but I had to work on their stuff as well. So that's where I kind of started becoming a mechanic. So fast forward, I moved to North Carolina right out of high school to just work in the sport. I just want, like, I wouldn't say I wanted to be a pit crew guy. I kind of did everything. Like when we worked in New Jersey on the race cars, now it's very specialized. You have just the guy that changes front tires, just the guy that spots, just the tire guy, just the crew chief. When I raced in New Jersey out of the junkyard, we did everything. You did the tires, you spotted, you loaded the car, you drove the truck, you drove the race car, you changed the tires, you did everything. So I guess I didn't really have it pinpointed down to what I wanted to do when I moved here, and I started at Roush. I got a job at Roush right at 19, luckily, in the fab shop building the race cars. And it was a good job, and it was really cool. I got to, being a fabricator with metals, like being an artist, you can be really good at it, and you hone your craft, and you learn new things. And I went in there, I was at Roush for 4 years, and I went in there, and it was like, that was like college for me. I never went to college. I went straight out of high school, right to the workforce and right to Roush. And when I got there, I could build like 2 little things. And when I left there 4 years later, I could do everything. I could weld, I could MIG weld, TIG weld, I could build anything you wanted. But through that, I could also change tires because I was working in the shop and I knew that there was more. I was kind of like you, like a free spirit. I always want more. I always want to do something new. And when you're working on the race team, I mean, you can't be a driver. I couldn't be a driver because the funding, I didn't have the opportunities. But like the next thing, competitive wise, I've always been a competitor, was being a pit crew guy. And I would watch those guys practice, and I got on the road as a mechanic, and the pit stops were just the best part, man. Everybody wants to be like, even in like Cars the movie now, when I go to my kid's school, like I show him Luigi when he jacks up the car and changes the tires, right? Who's cooler than that guy? And that's what we are. So I really wanted to be that guy, but man, there's a lot of hurdles to get there. And at Roush, the 4 years I was there, they said, hey, you're a really good mechanic, but I wasn't special athletically. I was just kind of a 170-pound white dude, like not, not any bit more athletic than the next guy. But I was like, I think there was a kid, Justin Fiedler, who changed tires for a long time. I think he said it best, so I'll steal it from him. I was all heart, no talent. So I just kept showing up. Like I had so many pit coaches and pit crew guys that just told me I would never do it and never, quit now, you're wasting your time, you suck, like just not cool, right? But I had to decide in those moments, like who I let influence my path of life. Like well, what do they know? Who are they? Yeah. Right? And I see those people now, and I'm thankful for that because luckily I was able to overcome that and have a good career doing this. And then because of the way I felt like I was maybe told that I couldn't do stuff or treated, right? I feel like I'm better to the younger guys now. When you come into Penske, I feel like I'm welcoming and I want to talk to you and I'll joke. But like, I felt when I started trying to be a pit crew guy, it was pretty hostile. Like people weren't super cool to me about it, or like really wanted, like there was, but there was a select few of like coaches that were like kind and took the time and helped me out. And there was a select few guys after practice that would, like, or after work or on their lunch break, would come out and watch me hit lug nuts and tell me how to fix it, not just that I sucked. And I always, like, I feel like that little bit of kindness, whether it be some, like, 10 minutes out of somebody's day, or just just taking that time and showing that kindness goes so far for a young person. And just like you said, like, when I tell you that I listen to your podcast, or just hit you with a one-liner, right? It feels good. And you're like, oh, okay. It makes you want to keep going and keep doing it. It's just one little bit. So, I don't know. I think it's helped me be a better veteran going through that when I was a rookie.
Yeah, I like how you said just keep going, and all heart.
No talent.
All heart, no talent. Yeah, I like that. And I can remember being in college and getting into NASCAR. You know, that was never a dream of mine. I kind of got in a weird way, especially with how One Lug is progressing now. You know, they get all these collegiate athletes, former professional athletes, they're recruiting them. And essentially, I wasn't recruited. I just kind of wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, because that's what I went to college for. I was a kinesiology major, and I sent an email to the strength and conditioning coach at Stewart-Haas Racing. Took him about 2 weeks to reply to me. You know, I started to think, I was like, I really don't have this standout resume. He doesn't need me to come in there. But 2 weeks later, he replied to me. He told me to come up to the shop, be there at 6 a.m. I got there at like 4:30 a.m. because I wasn't going to be late. I show up there, and I met the wrong coach. Instead of meeting the strength and conditioning coach, I met the pit crew coach. Met him. He asked me, he said, "Are you our new recruit?" And at the time, I didn't know if that's what they called their interns, so I just said, "Yes, sir."
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And I had on a polo shirt and khakis, and he was like, "Well, you can't start in that, so come back tomorrow in a t-shirt and shorts." And I'm like, okay. Come back the next day, he's getting me fitted for gloves, and he's showing me how to hang tires.
So you didn't even ask for the right coach's name? Did you?
I did it. I was just talking. It was Sean Cotton. I was talking to him the whole time, and I was thinking it was Chad Emmons.
Oh, so is Sean is the one that was like, well, you can't. Yeah, what are you wearing?
Yeah.
I could totally see. I was there the day Sean Cotton came in for the first time, which shows my age. He's a jackman now. On the Haas factory car 41. He's had a great career. He's a veteran now, right? And I remember when he walked into the shop for the first time. He's got a crazy story about baseball too, if you ever get to talk to him. But man, that makes me feel old. But the fact that, see, like, it's like a happy mistake, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
And I remember I called my dad after maybe a week or two of me going up to Stewart-Haas and learning how to hang tires. And I just told him one day, I was like, "Hey, do you know what I'm doing at Stewart-Haas?" Because he knew I was up there doing an internship. And he was like, "Yeah, what are you doing? What are you learning in the weight room?" It's like, pretty much nothing. I'm outside. So
did you ever get to the bottom, of, hey, I was here to meet somebody else?
So that happened within, I want to say, the second week, because Coach Emmons, he didn't hit me back up. Like, he just
figured you didn't show up.
Yeah, he just kind of ghosted me. And then one day he walked out back, because I was always extremely early in the morning with the Devo guys. And
you don't talk much at practice.
Yeah, so he practiced like later in the afternoon. So one day he just happened to come out there, and he looked. He was like, "Jordan?" And I was like, who are you?" And he was like, "Coach Emmons." And he was like, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been out here every day." And he was like, "Well, I thought you were supposed to do like strength and conditioning." I said, "I thought so too." I didn't. So me still
That's
being
so funny.
Me still being naive, I didn't know if me being a strength coach entailed me learning how to do that, so I could learn the movements. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're like, hey, I just showed up here and ended up in the wrong bus, man.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe they show all their strength coaches certain movements because it's a unique sport. It's not like football or baseball. These are movements that you pretty much don't do ever in your life. So I was under the impression that this is what I had to go through to progress to the weight room, but that's not what happened. So that's how I got involved in NASCAR. And shortly after that, I got moved to a tire changer and went to Penske, moved on back to a carrier.
I love that. We're outside, one with nature right now, so that's why I hear the Huntersville finest going out. But that's such a crazy story, but it's so I mean, it's so you. Once you know you, right? Like, I could see that. And then, too, like, that's great because you ended up... I feel like the competition side is hard to give up, right? And if you come off of being a competitor in college like you were, it's got to be hard to kind of package that and then just go into the gym and start training the competitors. So that's... Maybe you ended up right in the right place. God put you... right in the right spot.
He did, and I've said this before, and I've told my dad this plenty of times. So me going to Catawba was kind of living in my dad's shadow. He went to Catawba as well. He was a linebacker just like me. He wore the number 55 just like me. And like my whole life,
you did it just like him.
Yeah, just like him. So my whole life growing up, my whole room was decorated in Catawba memorabilia of my dad's legacy because he's in the school's Hall of Fame. He's like ranked like the third best linebacker of all time, something like that.
Did you beat him?
No.
Dang.
So that's what I'm going to get into. My whole college career, out of 4 years of playing collegiate football, I made one career start.
Really?
One career start.
But you kept going.
I kept going, and it played a lot on my mental health because this whole time I'm thinking I'm not satisfying my dad. I'm thinking, I'm just this bum. I'm not really getting any playing time. My parents are showing up to every game just to watch me get in on kickoff, on special teams, and maybe a few snaps on defense at the end of the game. And I just felt worthy. Like I didn't feel like I was worthy enough of, being considered a quote unquote Goodine because as soon as I stepped on campus, all the alumni will always tell me, they're like, "Are you gonna be just like your dad? Are you gonna be just like your dad?"
Yeah.
And me being a little fresh, I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm gonna be just like."
No, I'm gonna be better.
Yeah. And I never was, and it wasn't until I got into NASCAR when I found pit crew and found my own unique path. That's when I realized, okay, I can use this to build my own identity. I don't have to live in my dad's shadow anymore. So that's why I love what I do now because no one in my family's ever done anything of this nature. So it just allows me to, enjoy every single day and be the best that I can possibly be. And during that time of me being at Catawba and, not living up to what I thought I was supposed to do, that's when I found Stoicism. That's when I found it. I found it my freshman year when I tore my ACL. So I tore my ACL, had a complete tear, and at the time I was also playing baseball at Goodieval, and that ultimately forced me to leave the baseball team and just continue football for the next 2 years. But that's when I found Stoicism because it took a lot to being pulled from a sport for a whole year, especially when I've been playing sports since I was 3 years old. I'm now 20 at the time, and being benched for a whole year, just learning how to walk again, seeing all your friends play, going to rehab every morning, and pain and agony, and just wondering, asking God, why me? Why me? And that's when I found Stoicism. And the one quote that helped me push through ACL rehab and being able to get back onto the field was, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality."
Yeah. I mean, it's true, right? And it's no situation is neither good nor bad. It's just how you think of it, right? It's like, what's that, the farmer who people would come to him and be like, "Your son broke his leg, that's terrible." And he'd be like, "Maybe."
Yeah.
And the next day, the army general comes to take his son to war, and his leg's broken, right? And they're like, "Oh, your son can't go. That's great." Maybe, right? Like you never. I think that's the best part about Stoicism is that you don't have to have an opinion, even when it comes to yourself, right? Like you never know. Like you said, you never know what the world's going to throw at you, right? You can go over and interview one guy, talk to the wrong guy, and now all of a sudden you were on the Wood Brothers car for the 100th win, one of the most monumental victories in NASCAR history, right? But yeah, Stoicism to me is something that I actually got. I didn't know much about. Jeremy Boone, who we work with, gave us a book called "The Obstacle is the Way," and I always felt, much like you, as much as I was like you, I don't talk about this much, but I'll dive in. I think I was on the other end of it with my father. So my dad was a good, he was really good BMX racer, but I always kind of, my dad was the type of guy that was at the quarter midget track when I was racing, like as a kid. Like he'd be up in the van smoking weed, like sneaking beers, right?
Yeah.
And I was sometimes like embarrassed by that. So I feel almost on the other end where like I wanted to always make my dad proud. I always wanted to make my dad proud. I think there's always like a piece, and I heard your podcast last week where you were talking about like the family table shrinking, right? Where the older you get, the less people are at family dinner. And I think about that because I think most of my life, and it's taken me having my own kids and now like being 37 and seeing stuff with clearer eyes. Like the reason that I came down here and went racing, I was trying to make my family proud and my dad proud and my cousin Keith proud and the people I raced with, and like we had this big group, right? And if we had a party, I mean, my cousin Keith used to throw these huge parties. There'd be hundreds of people there, and it was all our racing family. And I keep that going. But now when I go racing, there's like 4 or 5 guys with me, right? And my dad, my cousin Keith, passed away from he had a bad drug addiction. He passed away, and my dad has fought that. And so he's 8 years sober now. 9 years, I think he got his coin this morning. So it's good to have that relationship. But a lot of what I did was to try to better myself, like to get away from that, because I saw once I was kind of old enough to understand it, like as a little kid. When I was racing quarter midgets, like those guys were gods to me. And they were just your Saturday night racers, right? They were in the junkyard. They work 40, 50-hour-week jobs and work in their car in the shop at night. And then we'd go to the racetrack on Saturday. And I think as you get older, you realize, like, oh, okay, and that guy wasn't what I thought he was when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
But my dad, I think I did a lot of stuff to prove him wrong the other way, like you did. Like you tried to make your dad proud, where I tried to do stuff to maybe break the mold or break the I wouldn't call it a curse. Like I have a hard time kind of disrespecting or like dragging my dad through the mud. But break the generational curses that were kind of put on us. So it's interesting to hear you say that, but like that you were just, felt that you came short of your dad's legacy, right? Mm-hmm. That you don't really know that about a person, right? And I feel like I've worked and done stuff the other way, like super professional, try to do things a certain way to create my own legacy, like almost like self-made, where you feel like you lived in your dad's shadow in a bad way. I feel like I'm trying to break out of the mold of what, my, like the alcoholism or the drug addiction that my family had. Like not try to live up to it, but like crack that and be not like the first. So I'll give you for instance. I'm trying to be long-winded, but let me give you for instance. I called a friend when I was moving down here that worked at Hendrick. And I said, hey, I'm going to move to North Carolina. I want a job. And he kind of fumbled around. He said, well, they drug test down here. I said, oh, I've never done drugs in my life. He's like, oh, what? Wait, what? But your whole family does. I'm like, no, I'm not. I've never done that. Right? I'm trying to break that mold. So people inherently look at you like that. Exactly like you said. People thought you were going to be a all-star linebacker because of who your dad was. Mm-hmm. And you lived with that burden of, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Timing, whatever, it didn't work out. And you carry that, and maybe whether it be shame or what you felt. And I've lived with the burden the other way, where people assume that I just did drugs and alcohol, and I have to overcome that and prove tenfold that I'm not that way, right? So that's interesting, because you never know the battles people are facing.
Yeah, that's true. And to piggyback off of that, like when I said NASCAR allows me to be my own
be your
self.
Own person, yeah.
There's no better feeling in the world than having my parents, my brother, my aunts and uncles text me before the race, and they're like, we're watching, or they send me like a picture of the screen, they're like, good luck today. there's no better feeling in the world than that. No matter if we finish first or last, they're going to be proud. They're going to wear whatever gear that I gave them proudly.
Yeah.
And my dad walks around, he tells everyone, yeah, my son's the carrier of that car.
Yeah, it's good. It's awesome, dude. Even the little ones like that, you don't realize when there's like a friend from back home that like takes a picture of you on TV, like, holy crap, I didn't know you were doing this. Like, that's always cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough though, because on the flip side, right, like on the flip side of that, it gets to be your identity, which
That's
is dangerous,
true. Yeah.
right? You don't want that. You don't want it to be your identity, because like I've been in the middle of like people, oh, you're this guy, and then you get fired off a car, and they're like, well, where you at? What the hell happened? What,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, I've always felt like that's really cool, but it's very fleeting, because it's just like sports, right? One Achilles injury away from being out. On the picture side, you're one crew chief change or a driver or something switching, then you're on a different car, and you've made your identity as the tire changer of the 12 car, right? And now you're the tire changer of the 34, right? That might be different. And people are like, what happened? Why'd you get moved? What, and you have to explain it. So that's why I try to make your identity as a human, not as the position you're in, because it's inevitably going to change, right? But it is really cool to make your family proud and to do it right. And I had a young kid the other day ask me, man, you've been doing this a long time. What's the most important part? And what's the most important part of being a successful picker guy? And I was like, thought about it. I was like, man, that's a good question. And I think everybody at Penske is capable. Like when you get in the door there, everybody's capable of. Man, we got Black Hawk going over. Everybody's capable of doing the job, right?
Yeah, they are.
But I feel after years of doing this, the most important part of your weekend is the guys you're around, is being a good teammate, like being a good person to be around. Because like I tell our guys, contract stuff inevitably comes up. People want to make more money. We're going to go here. These guys are paying that. I'm like, you really just find 4 other guys you like drive around in the minivan with, because that's what most of this stuff is. And if you can have 4 guys that iron sharpens iron, right, that you can text and talk to and grow together and really just get along with and grow that bond and see each other grow and share life stories outside of picker stuff, like that is invaluable, right? The extra 10 or 20 grand that you're going to make going somewhere else, that's not worth it when you have like it's like a brotherhood, right? Like we've built that on our car, and it takes years to do. It's tough, and that's why, like, as a 37-year-old, I get the question a lot, like, when are you going to be done? I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, I really enjoy doing it. Like, well, you have a lot of stuff going on outside of here. I'm like, yeah, but keep the first thing, and this is still like my favorite thing to do. It's when you look at like the grand scheme of what we do. We get flown around in private planes to all these different racetracks to jump out from a race car for a living, and then we practice and work out. We're pretty much in gym class 3 days a week, right? And get paid for it. And it's stressful, but to like the grand scheme of the world, what we do is not super important. We're not curing cancer, right? We're literally getting to play gym class, and it's great, right? It's awesome, but you can make it anything you want. To your point earlier in the podcast, like nothing's either good or bad. It just is, and it's your perception of what it is. So I think when you take a step back and look at it from 40,000 feet, like a helicopter that just went by, you can see like, man, this is pretty great. Like when I wrote down a quote for you because you told me to stay pretty stoic heavy here. So I remember Ryan Hall. The way I got into Stoicism was Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle's the Way. And there's a story about 2 authors and a billionaire. And when I think about pit crew and I think about the world that we live in, the NASCAR world is sometimes a fantasy land of people making a lot of money. And we're pretty shielded from what the real world can be. Not just here, but like if you go to different countries or you see people that are really struggling or in war-torn country, like we lose sight of like in our little bubble what's going on. And then here, like with the NASCAR stuff, you see people that have millions and millions of dollars, right? And you always judge yourself off of that. So there was a story about the two authors, Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut. He wrote Catch-22. And they went to a party hosted by a billionaire. And the one author said, how does it make you feel to know that our host had made more money yesterday than you'll make on your entire novel that you wrote? And the best answer, he said, well, I've got something that he can never have. I know what is enough. And I like that a lot. Like, the knowledge of what is enough is like as far as like the being a picker guy, I get asked that a lot. Like, what are you going to be done? When are you going to do more? When are you going to do more? I'm like, well, why? I can drop my kids off at school. I can have her pick them up from school. This is like a great job. It's more than enough of what I need, right? And so I love doing it. I'm going to do it as long as I can.
I like that. For me, I always, like you said, like you mentioned earlier, I'm a free spirit. I always constantly want to do more. I just want to be everything. I want to be an athlete. I want to be an artist. I want to be a gardener, coffee shop owner, everything. I want to do it all. And I like to go on YouTube and look at videos of guys who are living their best lives and traveling the world, doing anything they want to do on their own expense. And ultimately, that's what I get to do. NASCAR allows me to do that. We don't work strenuous hours during the week. So once practice is over, now I'm currently a coach at a gym. But outside of that, I get to do whatever I want to do. If I want to go to a coffee shop at 2 o'clock and just drink a coffee and read a book, I can do that on a Monday. So sorry about that. I don't know why it just cut out, but it did. But anyway, to pick back up, if I can go to a coffee shop on a Monday, I can. And I remember when it hit me, I want to say it was the week before we won in Daytona. So it was a Thursday. We didn't practice that day. So me, Parks, Ty, Dilly, and Webb, we went out on Parks' boat. And I remember I posted a picture of us just like on the boat, just hanging out. And one of my friends slid up on my story and said, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's Thursday. It's like noon. What are you doing?
Hey, get to work.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't work today.
Yeah.
And he was like, how are you on a boat? Like, right now, it's Thursday. Everybody else is working. I was like, this is just the nature of NASCAR.
Yeah,
like,
but they're not working on Sunday.
Yeah. But I don't ever feel like I'm ever working. Ever.
That's good. It's the stressful times when things aren't going good, right? Or you lose a race. Like, I don't know a lot of the guys know this, but like when I got hired at Penske, I got fired the first race.
Really?
In the middle of the 500. Yeah, I was struggling with their pit guns, and I had left Haas to come there to be on the 2 car, and I didn't make it through the Daytona 500 before I got taken off and like, all right, go figure it out, and got put back down on the Xfinity car. And then like trucks, Xfinity, back to like the 95 Cup car. Like that was a really hard time. But like there's times to put the work in, right? There's if you struggle or lose a race on pit road, maybe that Thursday you go in and put the work in and do all that. But there's also times to get away and not be part of it. And yeah, I think everybody's always going to be like, I'm working. Why are you not working? What the hell? But and it might be a cop-out answer. Like, I think some people would say that, like, everybody wants to be a billionaire, right? Or they say they do. So they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, that's enough. But it's like the man, I'm like full of stories. Like the story of the millionaire that went down to Mexico to go on vacation, and he came up on the Mexican fisherman. You ever hear that one?
Mm-mm.
And he was like, they're in this little Mexican village on the water, and he caught all the fish, and the American was like, how long did it take you to catch all the fish? He's like, not long. He's like, then why don't you stay out longer and catch more? And he was like, I don't really need to catch more. He's like, well, what do you do with the rest of your days? Like, I sleep late, I fish a little bit, I play with my kids, I take a siesta with my wife. In the evenings, I go into the village and see my friends and have a few drinks and play the guitar and I sing a few songs. I have a good life. And the American's like, no. You need to fish more, then buy a bigger boat, and then buy 2 boats, and then you can buy a bunch of boats, and then you can move it. Then you can have all sorts of different boats around the world where you fish, and then you could get it publicly traded. Then you could be a billionaire. And he's like, well, then what? He's like, then you can live down by the coast and hang out with your wife and play with your kids and go drink at night. And he's like, that's what I do now. Why do I need to have all those headaches to do what I do now, right? Like that, it goes hand in hand. So there's, I don't know, everybody's life experience is different, but like I feel like, I guess I was long-winded before, but I feel like if you don't kind of narrow down, like, I don't think you really ever have to narrow it. Like, you are young, right? You see a lot of stuff and you want to do a lot of things and you have to do those things, right? Like everybody asks me why I go race. Like I go race modifieds and do it because I have to experience. That's what I wanted to do, and I have to experience that and I have to get it out of my system. And there's a lot of stuff that like is probably not the best decision at the time financially or even more important than financial, like with my time right now, especially now, I feel like my time is the most valuable it'll ever be. At 37 years old, with 2 kids, a wife, 2 little kids that are growing up quickly, wife, business, I've got good health. Like right now, like my time is as valuable as it'll ever be. So sometimes I don't make the best decision with my time to be efficient. But there's things that I just have to do in my life to check off the list. Like, okay, I always wanted that. I'd look at Instagram. I'd look at the people that were doing that. I need to do that just to experience it and see if it's what I think it is. And a lot of times you do it, and you're like, okay, that didn't make my heart any more full. Or that didn't bring me any more joy. Or it did, right? Or that's what I need to be doing more of. I need to put some more time into that. So, like, I see a lot of that in you because you're like, I want to try this. I want to try that. I want to go here. I want to go there. And I'm like, you got to do all that stuff, man. Get it out of your system. And that's what this life entails. Now, I didn't always just pit. I worked in the shop from 7 to 5, 7 to 4 for the first 13 years of my life out of school, right? Like I was at Roush in 6:30 to 5:30. That was our hours, right? With an hour lunch break. It was like working in a factory almost. We were building race cars, right? And then the same thing when I went to Store Haas. I worked in the shop, and then I went to the racetrack. I didn't take any days off. Same thing at Penske. I worked in the shop. Got done with practice just like Hensley does, and went and put a blue shirt on and worked in the shop. So this is kind of a new thing in the last 5 years where like I have time off. I've been able to start a business and do things that I wanted to do for myself. So I think it's great that you guys get to do that and experience that stuff at an earlier stage than I was.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone put it as simply as you put it, get it out of your system. You know, I never really thought of it that way, but now it makes a whole lot of sense when people have all these endeavors that they want to embark on. It's just you have to figure out what you want to do, or not even so much figure out what you want to do. You just have to go act on it, and then you're satisfied, or at least a little bit of something happens. You know, you fall down 7 times, you stand up 8. And if you want to go own the coffee shop and the business fails, oh well, you owned the coffee shop for a little bit. You just knew what it was like to own the coffee shop. But also just feeling blessed for where you are right now and being exactly where your feet are is also an important thing to embrace in life. And, you know, all the older guys who I'm around in NASCAR, like Courtney, who's my jack man, he tells me all the time, he says I'm spoiled in the sense of NASCAR. And he says you're spoiled because a lot of the guys coming up, they had to drive to every single race for a $250 check. He was like, you get a nice hotel whenever we're staying out on the road. He was like, you get good gear, you got a good pit box, you have fire suits that actually fit. He was saying you're spoiled.
Yeah.
He was like, you don't know the struggles that a lot of these guys had to go through. So you should be a little bit more appreciative of the things that you have. And I told him, I was like, I'm appreciative, but how appreciative can you be if you don't know what it's like?
That's right.
Yeah, when it could be worse.
So I would say that I had, and you know, it's always hard to compare, but for me, I had a really hard time to break into that. I trained in the parking lot at Roush in the picker at my lunch break for 4 years, right? And when I quit Roush to go to Stuart Haas to try to just be their backup, my fab shop boss called me in his office. He's like, "Hey, you're a great employee. You're a great fabricator. You suck at changing tires. Don't quit here because you're not going to have a job soon. It's like, just stay here. We'll act like we never had this conversation. Stay." And I was like, "No, I gotta go pursue this."
Mm-hmm.
And even when I got to Stuart Haas, like, things didn't go particularly as I wanted them to. And I there was a race at Richmond when I finally got on a cup car and worked. And like, I did all of those truck deals. Like, you gotta find a way to the racetrack. You gotta find a way back. You gotta find a place to sleep. Like, all of that hard road of like pitting ARCA cars, pitting a truck. My first truck race, I drove to Martinsville and changed tires for Norm Benning for like $100. Like, I lost money. It just in gas money to get there, just because I wanted to do it. So I lived all that and got fired and hired and fired and hired and had to swallow my pride and be on shitty back marker cars that the droops aren't right and the cones are too long and the thread lengths aren't right. Like, do all of that to get to stand on the stage as a champion. But a lot of people only really see the championship trophies, which is fine. Like, it's not their job to understand what you went through. Like, we all have our own human experience. And I try, the scope of NASCAR has changed so much since we went to this new one lug nut style pit stop, that, like, I don't hold that against you guys, because you don't have to go through that same struggle I did. Sometimes I almost hate it for you that you didn't have to go through that, right? Like, yeah. But you went through your own struggles in life and college with what you went through with not living up to what you felt like you should have as a linebacker, right? There's just different experiences, but Courtney's not wrong, right? You guys are spoiled, for sure. And he's on your team, right? So I'm not on your team, so I don't understand what you take for granted. But maybe he's just trying to make you understand, okay, like, hey, not everybody gets this. Or maybe he's just busting your balls. I don't know. But that he's not wrong. Like, when I look at Parks or look at you or look at some of our young guys, I'm like, happy for you. But, like, I'm not. Because I had to. Okay, I've thought about this a lot over the years. Because there was a watershed moment. In NASCAR, it used to be like, I got shit on, so you have to get shit on. But just because we did stuff and I did stuff and got berated for it or talked down to, doesn't mean that I have to talk down to the next person, right? Or just because I struggled doesn't mean that you have to. We found a more efficient way to do it, right? Maybe we struggled so the next generation doesn't have to. But so you guys are both right. Courtney's right. You guys are spoiled, but you don't know what you don't know. Yeah,
there's a great quote by John Locke about what you just said about how you have to fight these battles so others won't have to.
Yeah,
I'm going to try.
But some people fight the battles and they think that you should fight them too because they had to fight them, right? Yeah. And that's a tough part. That's like the bitterness of that you have to kind of search within yourself of like, just because I did this doesn't mean that someone else has to.
Yeah. When you say you got fired, got hired, got fired, got hired, when it comes to that in life, because on my last podcast, I asked Curtis, who's a staff sergeant in the military, I asked him, when do you know when it's time to hang it up? When do you know when it's time to say, okay, you know what? I've fallen way too many times. I've given my best effort, and it just doesn't seem like this is for me.
Oh, it'll never. If it comes down to falling and getting back up, I'll never stay down. Right? I'll never be done because I fell too much. Right? I'll be done. Like I'll know when it's time to be done, either when I'm not. Well, it just won't be in the right situation, right? Or maybe the coaches will come to me and say, "Hey, man, you're done," right? And then I'll be done.
Yeah.
And if there's no opportunities, there are no opportunities, or if it's time to go focus on my business. But, like, I don't think there's ever been a setback yet that's like, all right, this is enough, right? I think everybody wants to go out on their own terms. Sometimes you don't get to. Like, I don't know what life has in store for me. Memento mori. You could leave at any time, right?
Yeah.
Like last week, there was a guy that I knew really well that tragically passed away. Like, crossing the street, got hit by a car. Gone. 48 years old. Here, gone. Just one accident. And it's really shifted my perspective this week of just like, man, could leave at any time. You could literally, and every human that's ever lived has been here and gone. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like, I don't know when it's time to hang it up. I'm not there yet, but maybe we'll do another podcast when it is that time and I can explain it. But everybody's different. I just know that I've made a decision consciously in the last 3 years that when I am done, I'm content with it. And I think winning a championship helped that, right? I've kind of checked off a lot of the boxes that I wanted to with the 2500 and championships. And I saw a great quote, and I sent it to Ray Callahan from one of the Eagles players. He said, I thought when we won the Super Bowl, all my hard work would be justified, and I'd be happy, but it's not. There's nothing in the my little guy's just rolled in. He's crazy, but there's nothing in victory lane that you're gonna find that makes you feel validated. The sauce is in the gym and in the practice area, and in the small little details and moments, and looking at the numbers and knowing that you worked on X, Y, Z, and it shows up in the numbers this week because you were 10th better, and in 3 weeks you're 3/10 better. That's where the fun is. So the winning is the result. It's not the goal, right? The goal is to get better each day. The goal is to be more consistent each day. The goal is to be a better human each day or lift your team up. The goals change. The result of that goal, if you're doing it right and you're on the right team and the timing works out, you get to go to victory lane. You get the championship ring. But that's, like we said, that's the result, not the goal. So I've shifted my focus to being bitter that I know my career will end one day, to trying to leave a legacy for when I come back to pit road, you guys are happy to see me, right? Like, oh man, Flo was cool. He helped me out, like that's, or if I go into the media side or with the podcast or pit report, you guys want to talk to me, right? Like you very seldom remember what a person did, but you always remember how they made you feel. Right? Like that's you remember when you see somebody, you remember how they made you feel, like that. Always. So hopefully in that situation, like I joke around a lot at pit practice because it's fun. I see the stress on guys' faces, and I don't always understand that there's jobs on the line or people are competing against each other. So sometimes maybe I put people in awkward situations, but I mean, we need to be having fun, even if you're competing, even if you're going against somebody, even if you're trying to be better. Yeah, I don't know. You just keep going every day. And then, like, as far as the trials and tribulations, that's like what I have tattooed on my side, James 1:2-4. Consider it pure joy when trials of many kind come your way, because that creates perseverance. And through perseverance, it makes you mature in the Lord, needing nothing. So that's like, I've gone through those trials and tribulations of trying to be a pit crew guy, and I feel like I've come out more mature on the other side.
Yeah, I like that quote, that Bible verse, and that kind of brings into one of my favorite Bible verses. I think I've said it to you before. I got it from the movie Fury.
Yeah, well, you said it to me.
Yeah.
Here am I.
And anytime something gets hard for me, and I feel like God is trying to lead me a certain way or kind of make an example out of me, not so much in the sense of teaching me a lesson, but persevering and getting through and showing someone else that they can do it too. And the verse is, Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who shall go for us? And I said, Here am I, send me. Isaiah 6:8. I got it from Fury.
Well, you said that to me. You said, what's your favorite Bible verse one day? And then you said that. And I said, oh, you've been watching Fury, huh? And you just smirked, and you're like, damn, he got me. But that's a great, hey, it's a quote in a Brad Pitt movie for a reason, right? It's a Bible verse they use there because it's a great one. But yeah, there's so many just great Bible verses that are always, we pray every week before the race. Our 12 team does, and I used to share Bible verse with the guys and just go through. I guess that's my sign that I probably need to get back into doing a Bible study or reading more scripture, because I haven't done that because I just haven't been reading the scripture like I used to. But it's crazy how when you do exactly like you said before, when you were praying, when you hurt your ACL, you were, why me? Mm-hmm. Talking to God, why me? And he didn't tell you why, but he gave you the answers to, hey man, here's the book, here's Stoicism, and you read it and you go, oh, okay, I see, now I understand why this is happening, or I've grown through this, right? Like there's, what's that old saying? There's 3 answers to prayer. Yes, not right now, or I've got something better in mind, right? Like, I don't know. God's got a funny way of showing you the route.
Mm-hmm. And I can remember, it's been a long time since I've gotten a text from a coach that really excited me. From high school on through college, I never really got that text that was something that excited me. The last time, before I get into the text that Ray sent me, but prior to that, the last text I got was from Stuart Haas when they released me. And it wasn't a great feeling, especially being on the bus ride home on the way from my last ever football game of my life. That's when I was getting the message that, oh, when you come back to North Carolina Monday, clean out your locker, you're done. So that wasn't a good feeling.
No.
And I can remember last year, during the summer, I was in Trader Joe's in Charlotte, and Coach Ray called me and he said, what are you doing this weekend? And I lied. I honestly lied, because you're supposed to tell him I'm not doing anything, but I said, I definitely had plans. I'm pretty sure I was supposed to go hiking or something. And I said, oh, no, I'm good. I don't have anything going on this weekend. And he said, okay, good. Just stay by your phone for right now. And he was like, I'm going to inform you later, but just keep this between me and you, but I'll let you know later today of anything. So instantly, I'm not dumb.
Might be in the game here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm like, okay, this is about to happen. It's been 2 years up to this point, and I kid you not, I was at a coffee shop later. I went to a coffee shop called Giddy Goat in Charlotte, and an hour later, Ray calls me and he says, congratulations, we're moving you up to the 21. You're going to carry for the rest of the season.
Nice.
And I can remember I didn't cry in the coffee shop, but I definitely went to my car and cried.
Well, there's twofold to that too, though. You go, oh yeah, all right, and then you go, oh shit, now I'm in the game. I better do good, right? So like it changed the range of emotions. Like, yeah, I got it. Uh-oh, now I got to do it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they put the money where your mouth is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what, man. You talked about it earlier. I loved a quote that I saw, and I focused on this quote throughout the playoffs in 2023 when we ended up winning the championship, and it's something that's stuck with me ever since. It said, gratitude and anxiety live in the same place in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be both at the same time. Right? So if you are grateful and you're expressing and practicing gratitude, you inherently cannot be anxious. It puts it away, because they can't both live in the same house at the same time, and they're both in the same place in the brain. So I think about those emotions when you get that call, because then you get on the wall, and your first race you're going to be anxious no matter what. Mm-hmm. But you fast forward when you're, at Darlington for the Southern 500 win, right? Last pit stop, money stop, Coke 600, one of those big races, and your car's leading. Or you get on the wall and say, that's where my mindset shifted to when I stood on the wall. I was like, fuck yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Not, oh, I hope I don't mess this up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I put in the work. I'm here for a reason. Let's go. I was grateful to be there. I was excited to be there. I wasn't nervous about messing it up. So that's the next step of the career, right? For you and for young guys. It's like, all right, now you start racing for some wins. And the feelings, like, you can't help it. You're a human. Mm-hmm. And it's not just pit crew stuff, right? It's anything in life. Like, when you get something you've worked for and you finally get the opportunity, it's scary at first, but you got to remember why you started.
It's just like, I was telling my girlfriend, so she's in the Army, and she ships out in a few months, but she's a bit nervous of going to base and being the rank that she is. I'm not going to say her rank right off the bat because I'm not extremely sure, but I know she's going to be a decently high rank for her age.
She'll be mad when she listens to this, buddy.
Yeah, so she's going to be a decently high rank, but she's going to be leading a lot of people. And she's always saying, I'm nervous, or I'm not ready to do this. And I'm like, yes, you are. I was like, you've worked to get those accolades. I was like, yeah, you're ready. You're here for a reason. So just go ahead and live up to it. God has placed you in this position for a reason. And it's just like when you said, when you get on the wall and you're like, yeah, I'm ready.
Now, you're always going to be a little nervous, right? Like, my wife says, if you're not a little nervous and you're not operating at 100%, like, that's just your nerves. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if being nervous and anxious are two different things, but I feel like I don't know. Like, it's okay. I think it's human to have that little bit of like, but that's when you fall back on that gratitude of like, she's there for a reason, right? Yeah. The military put her in that position for a reason. Same thing for you. Ray the pit coaches put you on a car for a reason, not because they didn't think you were ready. Right? They get their asses chewed if you mess up just as bad as you do, probably worse. Yeah. So it's knowing why you're there in anything, not just in racing. The work that you took to get there. See, like, pit crew stuff is great because we kind of live in a sport where, like, you can kind of, as a driver, you can have a sponsor, you get a ride, right? Like, you can buy and sell it. But, like, as a pit crew guy, you can't fake it. Mm-mm. There's no amount of Instagram likes. There's no amount of selling yourself. Like, you can be the best marketing person in the world. But it's like the minute that car stops in the pit box, like, there's no hiding. You either can do the job or you can't, right? It's what do they call the boxing ring, the circle of truth? Mm-hmm. That's what Teddy Atlas would call that. When I get in the playoffs, I watch a lot of Mike Tyson stuff.
I love Mike Tyson.
Up. But he talks about it like, you either put the work in or you didn't. And when when the press conferences are done and all the podcasts are done and all that's done and you're standing on that wall and that car just gets to the jump line, right? Mm-hmm. You either put the work in or you didn't. You can't buy it, you can't fake it, you can't bullshit your way around it. So that's why I love our jobs, man.
I love competing.
Yeah.
In all forms of life, no matter what it is. I just love competition. I love being able to show the world what I do in those behind the scenes moments, because ultimately your whole life is behind the scenes. All the training that you do, all the sweat, all the tears, all the blood that you shed. Everyone doesn't see that. They just see the glory. Yeah. Yeah. But that's okay. It's not for them to see, right? It's not for them. It's for you. Yeah. They have their own stuff to do, and it's no. I heard you talk on this podcast before about people's opinion of you, right? Like, once I realized that people's opinion of me is not my business, that's fine, right? And like, people are gonna have opinions of you no matter what,
right?
Yeah.
And it's like you worry more about your character than about your reputation. Like your reputation is going to be what it's going to be, but your character is who you are, who your kids see, who you think, who you are, right? Like everybody knows if they're making a good or a bad decision. You pretty much know if you're being a shithead or not, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to perceive you however they want.
That's true.
It's not your choice how they do that, and it's not your business.
Yep. Well, it's getting pretty chilly out here.
It's cold, yep.
It's cold. Ryan, I thank you for being on here with me, and I just wanted to close this out with a Stoic quote, of course. Think of the life you have lived now as it's over as a dead man. See what's left as a bonus and live it according to nature. Love the hand that fate deals you and play as it is your own. For what could be more fitting? Marcus Aurelius. This is the Goodieval Life podcast, and always training, living, learning. Have a blessed one.
I've been running late, I've been tempted fate, I think I lost my